Hi, it's Sue. Welcome, guys, to my channel. I just want to start this video off saying that I have never wanted to be a Christian content creator. Okay, well, I am a Christian content creator because I am a Christian. My faith will always impact every single video that I make, but I've never wanted to be a Christian content creator, like a person that makes Christian content. But I feel like I really want to tell the story of my life with my faith and how I have ended up joining the Catholic Church. Once you start talking about your faith on the internet, people start thinking that you are a holy person and you become like their inspiration. And this is me saying, I am not your inspiration. Don't aspire to be like me. I am literally one of the worst sinners. Like, if there's a tier system of sinners, I would be in like the top 10 percentile. I promise you. My father's family is Anglican. My dad was baptized and confirmed Anglican, but I think it's cultural Anglican a thing where a lot of people, especially in my country, they just go to a church because that's the family's church, but you actually don't even know what the church teaches or anything. Plus, growing up, really, my dad didn't really go to church. And then my mom's family, my grandmother is Pentecostal, so my aunts and my uncle and my mom grew up in like Pentecostal churches. So when my parents were married, that was, I think, always a point of contention because my dad was always like traditional churches. My mom always preferred to go to Pentecostal churches. There I come, and I got baptized Anglican because that is the church that my dad claims. As I said, growing up, my dad never went to church, so I always used to go to church with my mom and my grandma. So I went to like this evangelical church. That's the church my grandmother went for several years. And then there, when I was 7 years old, is when I first accepted Jesus Christ into my heart. Then when I was in grade 3, I went to a Hindu school. But like that Hindu school, there are lots of Indians, and Indians, there are a large population of Indians that are Muslim. So some of my friends from that school were Muslims. And then I remember there was a channel on DSTV that used to put like Muslim shows, Muslim talks and things like that. So I actually became very interested in becoming a Muslim. And then I remember there was a show where they did I think it's called the Shahada or something. Is it Shahada? Where you like say something and then you become a Muslim. So I remember I said it and then I was like, I'm not Muslim. And I remember telling my mom I was so young. I remember telling my mom that I'm now a Muslim. I don't eat pork. Pork is haram. I pray 5 times a day. What I think I've always loved about my parents is that my parents have always, unless that choice was something that was like specifically bad, my parents have always respected my choices. So my mom was like, okay, you're now Muslim, fine. And the day that I told her, she decided to make pork. And I was like, no, I don't eat pork. I'm a Muslim. But I remember for the week that I was a Muslim, I remember feeling like this pain that started in my chest, in my heart. It was like I constantly had a pain in my heart, in my chest, until I was just like, you know what? I remember I then went on my knees this one when I was still in grade 3, and then I repented. I prayed to Jesus, and I said, Jesus, I'm sorry. I want you to come back to you. And almost like instantaneously, the pain in my chest left. Now that I'm older, I think it was the Holy Spirit. My first encounter with the Catholic Church was when we lived in Congo Brazzaville as a family. At that time, I don't think there was an Anglican church that was near me. So I used to go to the Catholic church with my dad's friend. Like, she's Catholic. So I used to go, and I remember I fell in love with it. I loved being in the church. I actually went by my own free will. I was the only one in my family that went to church. There, I met a priest. I don't even remember his name, but he was so nice to me. He used to give me chocolate like every time, like whenever he knew that I was coming, he would always give me a bar of chocolate, a bar or two. of chocolate. This was I would say I was around 10 years old, and I loved it. I actually wanted to convert at that age, but I was already baptized Anglican, and I was too young for me to like go against my parents. And I don't think people understand that the way you treat children at such a young age, you plant a seed into their life. And that was when that seed was planted into my life. After we lived in Congo for like a year, we came back home to Zimbabwe, and then we started going to an Anglican church. My dad started going to church with us as a family because my mom then decided that she wanted to do Anglicanism, but it just didn't feel the same way that I felt when I was in the Catholic Church. But I remember being like, well, it's close enough, and we're finally going to church as a family, so that's kudos. This was just before my parents separated. That year period, that is when I then got confirmed, got my first Holy Communion in the Anglican Church. I was in grade 7, I think. And yeah, things were great. And then my mom, I guess she decided that she wanted to go back to like the Pentecostal churches. She stopped going to church with us to Anglican. When my mom stopped going, my dad stopped going. And so we all stopped going. And then that was towards the end of that year is when my parents then called it quits. Then from that point onwards, I had a very tumultuous teenagehood, and I think everyone that I knew that knows me from that time, I'm sure they'll be very surprised to find out that I had a really hard time, because I've always been someone that's always been very private about my affairs and my emotions in my family life. But my relationship with both of my parents first it was my relationship with like one of my parents who was like really strained for most of my high school life. And then because like I understand, because if you're going through like a heartbreak from a marriage that for like married for more than a decade, it's tough. My relationship with my other parent was good before they decided to start dating. What can I say? It was very tumultuous, if I should say, that time in my life. I'm not really going to go much into detail because a lot of the details are not just about me. They involve like other people. But let's just say I really struggled heavily with my mental health when I was in my teenage years, and I was very isolated and very by myself because I couldn't tell my friends. Even if I told my friends about it, there's absolutely nothing that they could do about it anyway. People that I thought that would always have my back, they ended up always taking the side of one parent like every single time. I felt insignificant. I felt unwanted and unloved, and I think that is something that I still struggle with now. As Catholics, we are taught to do self-examinations a lot. So when I think about myself now, I know something that is rooted from all the way back into my teenage years, that desire to be wanted and that deep desire to be loved. I cried every single day. I literally had nowhere to go. Then when I was around 16, that's when I had my first encounter with the Holy Spirit. I went to my grandmother's church, and then like something just happened. The Holy Spirit just like came heavily onto me, and I just started crying. I started crying, and my grandmother is a strong woman of God. So she went with me to the altar. And yeah, that is when I had my first encounter. It was at a Pentecostal church, evangelical church actually, more evangelical. From that moment, that's when my life started to shift a bit. My mindset changed a bit. I've never been like, I'm not saying that I'm like a people's pleaser, because I actually really don't care about what people think about me, but I've always wanted to be loved. And I learned that no one will actually love me more than God at that period of my time. I never really went to church because I didn't have any money to go to church by myself. My mom stopped going to church completely. I think she became more of like an agnostic. My dad he was busy with his own life. Oh, but I thank God that I went to a very evangelical slash Baptist high school. And if I didn't go to that school, if God didn't save me as young as he did when I was like 7 years, I would have been a menace in the streets. Like, you guys don't understand how, like, deep down in my heart, I am such a really bad person. Around that time, I started watching a lot of Christian content. So I started watching videos like Girl Defined, Sadie Robertson, also like Catholic videos like Ascension Presents started popping up, and I started watching those videos. Emily Wilson, I started watching her videos. Those really helped me, even though I couldn't go to church, as well as the school that I went to at least, you know. And then when I started university is when I started watching like a lot of like these mega pastors. So I started watching Pastor Michael Todd. I started watching Pastor Stephen Furtick. Those were like the main two people that I watched. And around that time, they were exactly what I needed at that time. And then also just before that, I had a time where I had a breakup, and then that led me to become like pure agnostic. Like, I know God exists, but I don't want anything to do with that God anymore. But then at that time, the Lord pursued me. I remember there was a Bible on my table. I kept on looking to the Bible. But I didn't want to open for months. You know, I'm stubborn as a cow, until I just gave up. Then I went and I opened the Bible and I just saw a verse that touched me. That was when I repented again. And I went through university, and then I got a job, and then I started working. Fortunately, I started working at a Catholic mission. So I started attending mass. Like, we'd have like hospital mass where like the sick people would also come to join us in mass with like the hospital staff. That's when I started like falling in love with it again, with the Catholic Church again. Like, the richness, it was just something about the Catholic faith that I fell in love with. Also, like, a lot of Catholic content creators that are popping up on my TikTok feed as well. Creators like Voice of Reason, I love his videos. Iron Inquisitor, and Manly. Then like I started becoming like curious a bit, you know. The Protestant church has literally only been there for about 500 years. So there's literally like 1,500 years of Christian life before the Reformation happened. And you cannot tell me that from the very beginning of like Christianity that they were wrong from the start. It cannot be wrong. It's impossible for that tradition to have been wrong for more than 1,000 years. And I have a lot of reasons as to why things that compelled me to want to become Catholic. Maybe I'll do a separate video on arguments that I went through that then changed my mind, which is like crazy, because at the school that I went to in high school, we were like, I guess we could even say, indoctrinated to hate the Catholic Church. And one thing that I learned is, if you want to learn what someone believes, ask the person that believes the thing. If you want to learn about what the Catholic Church teaches, ask a Catholic. Don't get your answer from Pastor Johnny, who already hates the Catholic Church. What do you expect to hear? I bought my first rosary during the Easter time this year, and my mom and her communities at new church that she now goes to, they were trying to force me, not force, but like peer pressure me into joining their church. I kind of felt like that wasn't for me. So then I went to mass by myself. I literally like paid a taxi to go to the cathedral here in Harare. Then I attended mass, and after, when I was just sitting in the pews, I felt at home, and I knew that this is where I'm supposed to belong. I've never hated my sin as much as I hated now that I am Catholic. When you are a Protestant, usually you're within two camps. There's a camp where they think that the whole of Protestantism, we are saved once and for all. And so you have the camp that says that, well, like, I keep sinning, so it means that I haven't been saved enough. It means that my salvation is not guaranteed, so I'm still going to hell. And you have the other camp that's like, I'm saved forever. forever. So I continue to live my life however I want. I can continue sleeping around, I can continue drinking, I can continue lying, I can continue everything, but I'm still saved. I know I'm going to go to heaven. I don't have to confess my sins to anyone. I just confess them to the Lord and then do it again tomorrow. I think I was more into the second camp. Becoming Catholic has not changed my life. That day that I went to Mass for the first time here was the last day that they were taking OCIBCD OCIA lessons registrations, and then I registered and I haven't gone back since. So anyway, thanks for watching this video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Love you guys.